Today's Mac Voices is supported by RemoteHQ. Collaborate as if you were in the same room. Visit remotehq.co/MacVoices for a free trial and 3 months free with the code MacVoices. Welcome to Mac Voices. This is the talk of the Apple community, and I'm Chuck Joyner. This is the third in our Mac Voices Live three-part discussion of CES 2021, some of the more interesting products that we saw or heard about since CES 2021 was virtual, some of the panel discussions, and in general our impressions on CES going forward, as well as it being virtual this year. So let's go to the panel and we'll wrap this up.
You're welcome.
Frank, you brought the scrollable phone to the party. What else did you see as you were watching things go by?
I'm sorry, you're talking to me?
Yeah, Frank. Yes, you're Frank.
I'm sorry, I didn't. Actually, I
You're
didn't
kind of our
see
default
much
Frank until someone else shows up, hon.
until you get a hot dog. No, I only saw several of those 9-minute things, and they were all pushing TV screens. And I mainly came away with emotional stuff. First of all, I thought it was interesting that also TCL seems to be the firm that's really moving on TVs.
Right. Who are they?
But the two things that really hit me was that while watching Intel's 9-minute keynote, I kept thinking of Harold Lloyd hanging off the hands of that clock 40 stories up, because I kept thinking, I felt so bad for them. It's like, you guys aren't going to be around in 2 years. Why are you spending all this money? I don't get it. I felt bad for them. And the other thing that drove me nuts, and it also spills out a bit past this, was all these personal assistant robotics. And I've also seen things lately of all the robotic pets and stuff. And being a person with my health issues who lives on their own, there was something very, very creepy to me that I'm supposed to befriend these electronic devices. It reminded me of Sleeper by Woody Allen. And it just creeped me out to no end. I mean, I'm sure there's things there that I'll see when I get to watch all the vids that I'll want to buy. But those two impressions, that robotic stuff, just who was that here? I wrote it down. It was Samsung. They did things. Not the air purifier. I like Kelly, the small air purifier. I really like that idea. That's great for my studio apartment. But the whole idea that we're going to replace interaction between humans and pets with robotics for people, that just really scared me something crazy.
Is it like Uncanny Valley, or is it like Planet of the Apes kind of scary?
Yes.
No, it was just
Planet of the Uncanny
something
Valley.
about it seemed so insane. It was like people weren't thinking about people; they were thinking more about bottom line.
Yeah,
that was it. The person,
was very focused on it.
Did not matter. It was just pure bottom line, and that's it.
but see, I thought it was I thought the pet thing was interesting. Like a year or two, maybe it was 2 years ago, there was some sort of little robot-y companion that was like not meant to be a dog or anything like that. Like, it's a special robot-y shape. Like, it's not trying to be anything that you already know. And it's your little, like, go around the house and be companion. And I thought for some people, like for some people that might be great. Like, if you're a person who because like the point of it was to be a companion for somebody who needed a little bit of assistance. Like, if you were somebody who could get by with maybe a seeing eye dog, but like you didn't have to worry about feeding it or, not feeding it, and you didn't have to worry about walking it all the time. And if you're a person with mobility issues, that might be difficult, but you could still have a companion and then help.
Let me interrupt here.
Yeah.
I think you and Frank you're talking past each other. You're making different points.
I was just saying my take on it was that this is what I thought it would be interesting in that way, and that was it. Like that one, not like what stuff Samsung had this year. I thought was kind of odd too.
No, I just saw a thing the other night where somebody came out with version 2 of an electronic dog. Mm-hmm. And this person was so excited, and they were bringing it up to them and hugging them and putting it around their face. And I was just like, what have we become? I don't get it.
Frank, there are people that may or may not be on this podcast that have been on the show that name their devices and become emotionally attached to their laptops, their Macs, their cars.
He means me, Frank.
I wasn't bringing up any names. But it's in
the closet door,
and that fascinates me. So I don't think this is as far off as you might think it is. I agree with you. I think it's. I don't get it. But
I think that we can let it get to that point is a sad statement on us.
No, it's not a sad statement. I don't think it's a sad statement. I just think it's.
Okay, I'm just saying from my personal experience being in that position.
But
to me, to have someone say, "Here, we've got a what do they call them? They bring them into hospitals to help cheer up the kids."
Companion animals,
therapy dogs.
Right? Yeah. I don't want a companion bot. To me, that's really, really spooky, and it's really cold-hearted.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, I can too. But also somebody on the panel said they had a robo dog as a pet at one point. I'm not mentioning.
Yeah, but that was when I was a kid.
Yeah, but that's
I wasn't mentioning.
I love that Chuck's being super diplomatic about like somebody, and I'm over here like my phone's name is R2D2, and I call it by its name. Yes.
And but let's be fair. Andrew's been drinking since he was 4.
And should I point out that earlier in this conversation, we had a discussion about testing for cat DNA. So, did any of you, sort of on this topic, did any of you see, what is it, the Mouflon? I think I'm pronouncing that right. It's an AI emotional support pet.
No.
Yes.
I just briefly saw
the design was weird, I thought.
It looks like a tribble, a cross between a tribble and a gerbil.
That's terrible. I passed over thinking it's just okay. Somebody's spinning AI into into something. I just moved on.
Yeah,
electronic hamster.
So several years ago, I would one of the products that I saw at CES was to me like the grandfather of the Moodle or whatever they call this thing. And it was a pillow that had sensors in it. And so, it was this thing about like this big. And
I remember this.
Yeah. And there's pictures of me hugging it like this out on the internet. And
of course there are.
Of course.
After how many bottles?
You should see the pictures that aren't on the internet.
Oh boy, howdy. And the thing is, when you would hold it and squeeze it, it would do like a gentle heartbeat sort of thing, or like a purring sort of thing. And on one hand, you think, well, geez, this is really inhuman, because these are the sorts of things that we should all be able to get just from our interaction with other people. But there's a lot of people out there that, for whatever reason, can't have that interaction.
I know that. I'm one of them.
And I just love. Well, no, I don't mean like in that way. I mean like they are someone who needs that, but they're not capable of interacting with other people in a way where they can
handling
get
it
that.
in a way that is not going to be detrimental to all parties concerned.
Yes.
Yeah. Socially acceptable.
And so they can have something like this. Acceptable.
Yeah.
And they can have that. And so on one hand, I look at these things and I'm like, it's just, I don't know. But on the other hand, especially after this year where we've all had so much isolation, I'm thinking, if you can create something that can help someone that really needs to have that sense of being connected. And it just happens to be this little computerized furry thing, but it does it for them. Man, bring it on.
Yeah. I think, Jeff, you and I talked about this on a show, I think at one point somewhere out there on the internet because I remember it being the before times, and it was about loneliness was the last thing that people were saying was a public health crisis, was loneliness. Because everybody has a screen or several or more than several or whatever, it's easy to increasingly isolate yourself even when you feel like you're connected to the rest of the world, because you've got Twitter here and Facebook here and whatever and whatever and whatever. And so you feel like you have all of this connection to people, but it's not the same as the hug with the heartbeat. So that I remember, because I know how weird this sounds, but maybe it wasn't even on a podcast, but I remember you and I having this conversation. And so and I think it was around this thing that you saw at CES. And so that's why it seems familiar. But loneliness is totally a thing that needs to be addressed, which is a totally different conversation. But in some instances, I can see the point of it. So, yeah.
Well, but also, I mean, if there was ever a year that loneliness could become a public health crisis, this has been it. Because I know people that are just they would break down doors to get back in an office to be around people. And that really that part of it intrigues me, because I happen not to have that issue, but I do know people that do, and it's very, very real. It's not something to snicker at. It's absolutely true.
No,
so,
for sure. I know that totally.
But also and I want to be real careful here with how I characterize this, but the Japanese market seems to be very much accepting of this whole robotic interaction thing. And I mean, when we back in the years we could walk CES, I mean, all the Japanese specifically, all those their robots seem to have a specific look, with the big round faces. I mean, almost manga kind of thing. And I that seems to be a place where this has taken hold and is a lot more popular. So I'm not willing to discount it.
Yes, part of that is if you look at the Japanese population, it's a lot elder. It's a lot older than, say, the median age in Japan is a lot older, than the median age in the U.S. And I think, therefore, the need for companions, be it pets or electronic devices that emulate pets, is a little bit more pronounced. And I think Japanese culture may be a little bit more open to doing some of these things. Where,
well, they're very tech centric to begin with.
Yeah.
But I think there's also a certain pragmatism to what that we don't see the pragmatic part of it in their culture, but I think that's a lot of it. There's a whole lot of people who all live very, very close together, and and understand a lot about the realities of what life is like in Japan. And so some of what spins out of their culture that we see is part of that. I'm a huge Sanrio fan because Sanrio makes Hello Kitty, for people who playing along at home who don't think that sounds familiar. And I adore Hello Kitty, but they have a bunch of other characters. And one of their characters is this, it's this egg, and he's depressed all the time. So he's called Gudetama, and he just sort of lays around and mopes a lot. And he is ridiculously popular in Japan. This character who's not happy ever, and
couldn't they just get a U.S. teenager?
Right.
I mean, maybe, but I think the egg takes up less space and is way lower maintenance.
Oh yeah, that's true. That's true.
And you don't have to pay for college.
But they're both cracked.
Yes. Also true. So anyway. I think there's a certain amount of that also comes out of it, is just sort of the reality of being one of millions of people who live on an island, a much smaller island, and what it's like to, fit everybody into that space and what life is like, there with I have not been to Japan. I know people who've been to Japan, and all of them have said, like, I've never seen a more densely populated place in my entire life.
Yeah, that's very true. So I took the subway from near where the U.S. Embassy was to the electronics area. This is back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And being the size person that I am, I got into the subway car. Yeah, and it was like, oh my God. Well, actually, I have a really funny story about what happened to me at the Tokyo Tower, which is an exact duplicate of the Eiffel Tower, but I won't go into that right now. But yeah, everywhere you go, there's just lots and lots of people. And part of the reason why I think these virtual pets are so popular is because taking care of real pets is a time suck that so many Japanese people within their culture just don't have the time to do. And being responsible means that they understand that, and they're not going to just get a living thing that they can't take proper care of, so that they have these substitutes.
Yeah. That's what I mean. Pragmatism of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get back to CES, but one thing, I can't let this alone, Guy, on that point. I mean, think how popular Farmville was. And I know that's not a pet, but I mean, people would just take an incredible amount of time to
money
to tend these imaginary crops.
All right. And on that same note, SimCity was almost exactly the same thing. Roller Coaster Tycoon.
Tamagotchi was a pet.
Yep.
That actually was a pet.
All of these resource management, build your empire kind of games are very popular here in the U.S. because I think partially because of the culture of the U.S., which is more of a melting pot than really almost anywhere else in the world. We have the cast-offs of, there's a great line in Stripes that Bill Murray says. He says basically, all of the mutts of the world came to the U.S. and that's who we are. So the fact that so many people enjoy doing something like SimCity or Roller Coaster Tycoon or so many of these other resource management games doesn't surprise me, being that they seem to be more popular in the U.S. than in other parts of the world.
This edition of MacVoices is supported by RemoteHQ. Collaborate as if you were in the same room. Visit remotehq.co/MacVoices for a free trial and 3 months free with the code MacVoices. RemoteHQ is the answer to your collaborative needs when your team is remote or can't meet in person. Just like in 2020, just like in 2021. Just like if you were in person, RemoteHQ lets everyone interact, contribute, and make changes on the screen. If things get out of hand, you can take control when you need to, or just let the team run with their ideas and projects. And it's so easy. RemoteHQ can make any website into a collaboration space. The customizable workspace is just that, customizable. You can add apps, browse online resources, focus on documents, or on your team's faces, whatever suits your needs. And what happens in your workspace can stay in your workspace with RemoteHQ's digital trail that not only captures what happens, but is searchable, so you can find that great idea that maybe didn't seem so great at the time. Those are just some of the features that make RemoteHQ the best place to bring your remote team together. Visit remotehq.co/MacVoices to find out for yourself and sign up for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code MacVoices for 3 months free. That's remotehq.co/MacVoices for a free trial and 3 months free with the code MacVoices. Thanks to RemoteHQ for their support of MacVoices. So we're starting to run short on time, and before we go around and introduce anybody or each other, I want to find out: is there anything, just overall, an extra product or an observation on how things are being done or whatever that struck you? And I think that's going to be more for the people that are attending CES, but maybe you have some observations from a distance.
I'll jump in here if I may.
Yeah, Mark.
So I noticed, Sony was coming out with a couple announcements that seemed really significant to me. One was they had their Sony 360. I don't remember their model name. Speaker. So it looks like they are participating in the
smart speaker
renaissance. Let's call it the renaissance of home audio, high quality home audio devices. And they're also coming out with a drone. With I guess its distinguishing feature is its capability that you can put various high quality Sony cameras on it. So that seems significant to me. The other thing is just besides air purifiers, along sort of the health thing, there was some other company or maybe two of them that came out with ideas for bands or watches that they claimed could be glucose monitors. I don't know if they're FDA approved, yada, 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 yada. But, that seems to me that, there's this continuing ongoing trend of health monitoring based on stuff that you strap to your wrist. And, finally, I guess the third point is, NVIDIA came out with, a range of new graphic cards, more performance at lower power consumption. So this is good for gamers as well as sort of a lot of the shadow uses of their game cards for mining Bitcoin and all the other cyber currencies. So that was particularly interesting to me. Other than that, as I said before, cars, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I just haven't had time to look at. But it's even though it's been virtual, it seems like it has been a very interesting year, maybe even more significant than last year in 2020.
Mark, when you started with Sony, I thought sure that you were, and I'm serious about this, that you were going to mention that they are going to be launching a streaming service, but only for their Bravia TVs.
Bravia Plus.
I think that was what it's. Yeah, allegedly Blu-ray quality streaming, but only for those TVs.
I must say,
they've got better bandwidth there.
Surprised because streaming is a battle. Streaming is a battle for the attention. And the question is, Chuck, did they announce prices or just the concept?
I saw it in passing, Mark, and I honestly, it was one of those, like, the concept is interesting that I would be tied to. Oh, guys, that's a real cat. You scared me for a second.
Not a toy.
Sorry.
Where do you put the batteries?
Sony does have a library of video assets, so that
meow, bitty, 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 meow.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see just what comes of that. But I thought that's where you were going with that. Who else? Anybody else? Jeff, you want to?
Yep.
Anything struck you?
Yeah, and of course, this is something you knew would end up coming from me.
I know where you're. I know exactly where you're headed.
Kelly knows where I'm going.
Let me get popcorn. I'll be right back.
Okay, so CES has always had this weird relationship with sex and sexuality, where they like to exploit it until it became something that you actually were going to try and market, and then they really get cold feet. And having the in-person show made it much easier to find and intelligently discuss the sex toys, the sex aids. And this year, because it's not a live show, I think that segment of the market is really hurting. And it disappoints me that they have to suffer because the show can't be in person.
Because the nice thing about it was the same. Jeff, I might do a bad job of describing this. It was the same kind of casual informational conversation you could have at another booth about a charger or some sort of iPhone technology or something about televisions or something in displays. Like, here's what it is, here's what it does, here's the thing that's neat about ours. Like, if you've seen this before, here's how ours is different. And none of it was, ooh, and nobody had to use a clever metaphor for anything. And like, I just remember being weirded out by the conversation because it wasn't weird, if that makes any sense. It was a direct, very ordinary sounding conversation to have with somebody. What is it? Why is it cool? How is this one different from the other one I saw? And it was really nice to be able to like have that conversation with somebody. And it always seems to be, like you said, I think that's part of what made it rougher this year, because getting to talk to those folks in person was always kind of nice.
It was. And actually, I enjoyed that when I would go, and you'd have to go on a hunt to find their booths because they were just like stuck in, almost as if CES wanted to hide them. But when I'd walk up to their booths every year, the same people would be working the booths, and they'd see me, and they were excited to see me because they knew that it wasn't going to be some stupid thing where I was just trying to get a shock value story out of them.
Right.
And, as we're having this discussion, I'm realizing, man, I loved going to CES every year. I had so much fun going to CES every year. And I'm feeling like now I need to start going to CES again because I was getting to talk to a lot of really cool people and see a lot of really cool stuff. And in some cases get products some visibility that deserved it, but otherwise wouldn't get it.
Yeah. Well, David, if it's in person next year, Chuck's going to need a production assistant.
Yeah, well, who knows? Maybe by the time next year rolls around, if it's in person, I'll need a production assistant.
There you go.
I've never actually been to either CES or Las Vegas.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Guy, you are not allowed. You are the Mentos in the Diet Coke of Las Vegas. That's not supposed to ever happen.
I think that sounds about right.
I'll add one thing. I mean, the Mark got the first one with the Sony getting into the drone market, and then Wi-Fi, it keeps evolving. They announced Wi-Fi 6E certified routers, so TP-Link and Asus both announced them, and that's going to continue to evolve. So I mean, I think that's always an exciting thing. So David, as Wi-Fi continues to change.
I have a question on that. I think many of us here, have appreciated in the past, Apple's airport various devices. Yeah. These new ones, are they freaking ugly? With multiple antennas, as the company, Cisco and Linksys market, or are they actually something that is a little bit more discreet, like some of the Eero devices that you wouldn't mind putting out, on your table or on your bookshelf or something?
The Asus one looked okay, but the TP-Link one looks like a mash of antennas. So you probably wouldn't. Yeah, you would not appreciate it being out in the open in that case.
Yeah, no. There hasn't been a lot done with the aesthetics on these yet, and I think it's still because people think they live like in a closet behind a thing.
Yeah.
So you don't really have to see them. But what I have noticed is that the UI on some of them has started sucking a lot less.
Yeah.
And so that's been helpful. Like, yeah, like you don't have to call your family tech support person in order to get one of these up and running. It's very possible for a person with a reasonable amount of computer knowledge. If you can operate your smartphone competently, then you can get one of these things up and running in your house. And that did not used to be the case. So I've noticed that, like, yes, they have started looking better, but it's the software side that has, not the hardware side.
Yep. Yeah, you'll still see antennas.
Yeah, Andrew, I'm going to give you the last one before we wrap up. Anything that caught your eye as you went by that we haven't touched on?
Satechi introduced a bunch of new products. So they had they had like a couple of announcements that were CES, and then they released some new products that just happened to be released on CES week. So those ones were a bunch of new keyboards. There are wired and wireless, and they're all backlit. They all come in like compact and bigger sizes. Yeah, probably one of those. They have a couple of keyboard. Yeah, they look nice.
It's backlit. You can connect it to like 3 different devices. It's USB-C rechargeable.
Okay.
What's not to like?
Yeah.
Is it mechanical? How does it feel? Is it like typing on your MacBook keyboard?
It's not as good, but there were so many other pluses to it that I didn't care. You know, I wanted a backlit keyboard. I wanted to be able, because I've got 2 different computers down here. Yeah. I wanted to be able to use it with both computers so I don't have even more of a mess of what I have here already. The only other thing I have that kind of does the same thing is this Jellycomb trackball that also connects up to like 3 different things. And it just makes it so much easier. I just hit a button and I'm connected to the other computer.
Ah,
interesting.
Logitech, the new Logitech top of the line mouse does that as well. The MX Master 3.
I could not get my M570 to connect to the M1 Mac Mini. Didn't matter what I did; it would not connect. And this Jellycomb.
Yeah, well, the new one is it does that, the Bluetooth, and you like hit the button on the bottom and it switches from device to device and then you're done. So, ooh.
It looks just like the M570 and it works just like it too.
But they don't have a left-handed version? Yeah, no.
I don't know. Because my wife is left-handed, so I would, but she likes mice. So she's using a Microsoft Arc mouse. She really likes the Arc mouse for some reason, and she just sets the
super comfy. That's why.
Yeah, she just sets the buttons to their opposite, and she's good to go. Of course, anytime I have to go up and do anything, it's like I can't. My fingers are just not acting right. Isn't that right, Jelly?
Exactly as it should be.
Yeah.
Is that how she sounds?
Who, Jelly? Or my wife? No, my wife is married to me. She never sounds like this.
No, yeah, on that note, no, we're not going there.
We're done. Good night, everybody.
There's so much more to talk about, but we got to put an end to this somewhere. So I think we'll put a plug in it here. Frankly, I'll probably split this up into 3 shows because we've gone long enough for it, and we still have a long ways to go. But let's go around the room, let folks know where they can find you, and maybe we'll consider continuing this next week once CES is completely over. So, trying to keep the same order, but probably failing. Mr. David Ginsburg.
Yes, find me at In Touch with iOS at intouchwithios.com. Actually, Kelly's going to be on the show this week. It's going to be fun.
Oh, that's
right. That's why I was saying I had to remind you. And you'll also find me on Wednesday nights with Mr. Guy Serle at the Mac to the Future Live webcast. We have fun there as well with Warren and occasionally on the Mac Show and on Twitter, DaveG65. Thanks for having me.
Great. Thanks for being here, David. Yes. The man who is petting his cat, Mr. Guy Serle.
Let's see. Vertshark.com is the website. Vertshark and MacParrot is the Twitter handles. Guy at mymac.com is the email address. Vertshark is the stuff to look for on YouTube. Like, share, subscribe. mymac.com is the other podcast, and Guy's Daily Drive, where I don't do it every day, but I drive and I do a live cast. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
Sounds good. Thanks for being here, Guy.
And cats.
And cats. Mr. Jeff Gamet. Jeff, thank you for being here. What's going on?
Well, again, thanks for having me back. I'm amazed every single time you have me back. It's like, seriously? Wow. But I'm easy to find. J Gamet, Twitter and Instagram. Google me. I'm on like everyone's show. And I get around. And this is just so much fun.
It always is. It always is. Mr. Andrew Orr, I think I know where I can find you when the lights are on.
That's the only place we want to find him.
Yeah, if the video is any indication, the only place you can find him is MySpace, right?
So you can find me on Twitter at Andrew or Not. I'm a writer for the Mac Observer, macobserver.com. I write a whole lot about all the CES stuff and security and privacy and Apple stuff. And I also do a security podcast with Kelly every Friday. So, yeah, that's a thing.
Great. Thank you, Andrew. Thank you, Andrew.
I was so excited. I got the Jedi hand wave in there, and then you said exactly what I wanted you to say. So that's a thing. Whatevs.
Oh, Mark Fuccio, the guy that this week brought the fruit.
Oh yes, but you and
Jeff, no comment. Jeff, no comment.
Okay, yes, you inspired it. Your Take Control authors are very good and very interesting. So, best way to reach me is Twitter at Mark Fuccio, MarkFuccio, all together one word. And again, I want to thank you, Chuck, and I want to thank everybody else here because these are really fascinating discussions, and I think they're even better when it's in sort of, quote, slow news periods where there isn't a lot of Apple announcements to discuss, but other things going on in the tech and other related industries. So thank you for the invite, and back to you.
Thank you, sir. Good to have you as always. Mr. Frank Petrie, who got his camera and his microphone fixed to join us.
Yes, I used a rather large hammer. You can find me down in the courtyard lying on a park bench under a layer of newspapers usually. But if I'm not there, I want to thank you. You, for some reason, keep inviting me back. You haven't learned your lesson yet. But I have a blog, ympnow.com. I write for Screencast Online Magazine, a review every month. You can follow me on Twitter at fpetrie and on Instagram at Frankie, PHRANKY.
You're always welcome, Frank. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Last but absolutely not least. Now, I left her for last because I wanted her to catch her breath. And this week, we're going to give her 10 seconds.
Whoa. Da, da, da,
all right. Kelly, you ready?
Hold on. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
3, 2, 1, go.
You can find me on Twitter as Verso. You can find me as the host of the Daily Observations podcast over at macobserver.com and occasionally on The Incomparable, where I usually talk about Star Wars.
Damn.
Wow.
10 seconds.
10 seconds.
Wow.
10 seconds.
Serious. Last week, she hit it right on the number.
Nicely done, Kelly.
Well done.
Yes.
Kelly, I was certain it was going to be 11. But seriously, you hit 10.
I also am going to put a footnote to this because we had a mention of left-handed earlier. So my Twitter name is Verso, Verso. And what it means is a publishing term. When you open a book, the left-hand page is verso and the right-hand page is recto. It's like a Latin root for the left-hand side and the right-hand side. And I'm left-handed, so that's why I picked it. So that's why that's my name on everything.
There's at least 3 lefties here too.
Finally figured it out. Thank you for explaining that.
Hey, out of curiosity, how many left-handers here?
Me?
Whoa. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right.
How many right-handers? Is it even? Yeah.
Well, I'm right-handed, but Jelly here is left-handed.
Frank?
Frank abstained.
I have a left foot.
Oh, okay.
Hey guys, thank you. This has been a whole lot of fun. There's so many more things I wanted to talk about, and we just never got to them. But this was still great. So thanks to everyone.
And thank you, Chuck. Just like every week, it's like that. When the budget's tight and you stand at the ATM and you wonder if this is the week it's not going to spit the money out. That's what it feels like in the waiting room sometimes, and you always let me in.
And folks out there, thank you for joining us. Whether you listen live on Facebook, whether you listen live on YouTube, or whether you're catching this in the feeds because the times don't suit you, we completely understand. We'd love to have you join us. So Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific, on Facebook or YouTube, or again in the feeds. Until then, I'm Chuck Joyner. This is MacVoices. Thanks for watching. Visit MacVoices.com for show notes and to connect with Chuck on social media. Get involved in our Facebook group or like our Facebook page, and get more out of your Apple tech with MacVoices Magazine, free on Flipboard and on the web. And if you find value in it all, consider supporting us through either our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MacVoices or by making a one-time donation via the PayPal link on our front page and in the show notes of each episode. You will join these fine people who help bring you Mac Voices. Advertising handled by Backbeat Media at backbeatmedia.com. Bandwidth provided by CacheFly at cachefly.com.